Okay, so I thought I'd share the story of Daniel and my computer museum. Okay, and so it's a museum we set up at my local university where I work, and it was there for a number of years. And I'll tell you the story, what happened, and how it started, and all that sort of thing. Okay, so if you're interested in old computer kit and old computer junk and old computer museums, hey, stay tuned. I'll tell you the story of ours. So the beginning. So first of all, I've got to say I've never met a bit of old computer kit I don't like. I love all old computers. I don't care whether they're Macs or PCs or Amigas or Ataris. I love them all. They're all fantastic machines. They all deserve to be saved and looked after and cherished. Okay. I love using old computers. I love programming old computers. I love seeing what old computers can do. I love trying to find new uses for old computers. Okay. And so there's so much you can do. They've got a lot of life in them. There's no need for them to not last 10 or 20 years. People changing computers every 3 or 4 years is crazy and wasteful. We don't need to be doing that. Okay, in my view. And I hate seeing old computers shredded or destroyed or thrown into landfill. That really makes me sick. To think about the time bomb we're creating for future generations. All of these chemicals seeping into the groundwater. Yuck. They shouldn't be thrown into landfill. They should be recycled. But there's so many electronics still just thrown into landfill. It's just terrible. So recycled might be okay, but shredded is horrible. Shredded and recycled might be okay, but thrown into landfill is certainly not acceptable. Okay, and since the mid-1990s, I've had a dream of setting up my own computer museum. At least the 1990s. It's probably earlier than that, but I can definitely say in 1995 I had the dream, because that's when I set up Moose's Software Valley, my website. That was in July 96, and I definitely had the dream of setting up my own museum then, because I spoke about it with my brother, and I've still got emails of me talking about it with my brother back then. So it's at least in the mid-90s I had the dream, and I wanted the museum to be set up with old game consoles and old computers that all were working, or as working as possible, that people could use and visit and do some programming on, or play some games on, and have some fun with. That was my dream back in the mid-1990s, and in fact a lot earlier. Probably into the early 80s even, I had the dream. Festering away inside somewhere. I started seriously collecting in 2000 or 2001, and I mean seriously collecting computer kit, and old computer games and old software. And people heard through the grapevine that I loved old computer kit, and I started getting phone calls and emails offering me unwanted machines, or unwanted peripherals, unwanted printers, unwanted... In the 1990s, I got sent an Apple II card that plugged into a Macintosh LC. So even back in the late 1990s, people were sending me stuff just from my website and my presence on news groups like comp.emulators.apple II and all those great old news groups with retro machines. So I started getting kit back even in the 1990s, late 1990s. And I was also actively buying on eBay. So I was scouring eBay for old computers and old Apple II. I was mainly interested in PC and Apple II stuff, because I still got a really soft spot for the Apple II. I love the old Apple II. And so software mostly, but also some old computers as well. I put a lot of bids on some Mac LCs. I was trying to get the Apple II card that I was sent as a freebie in the 1990s. I was trying to get a machine that would work on. I got pipped at the post so many times on some great old machines, but anyway, maybe one day. Okay, so that's where I was then, and my collection grew quickly. In the end, I had garden sheds full of old computers. I had spare rooms at my house full. My office was full. Okay, of old computers, and so this we're talking about now, sort of towards the late 2000s and 2008, 2009 sort of time. I had garden sheds full, spare rooms full. I had a barn on my land, and that had so much computer kit in it. I was running out of space. Okay, so and also, sometimes water would get in, or storms would damage the building, and water would get in, or termites would build nests inside some of the boxes or inside some of the computers. And I lost a few old machines that way. Some great old, beautiful old pristine IBM XTs were destroyed from termites building nests in them. So I lost some kit as well. So I couldn't go on leaving it in garden sheds and things. It had to go into somewhere decent, like a nice proper museum. Okay, so here's a photo of my office at the university, and this was taken in about mid 2003. I can tell because there's still a VHS tapes there. We used to VHS tape our classes, so if any student missed a class, they could come and grab the tapes from me, and I could and they could do a catch up without having to worry too much. They could just watch it on their VHS at home. So that sort of stopped in about 2005, and this is well before then, because by 2005 I had a whole shelf full of tapes from my various classes. So this is definitely 2002 2003 time, definitely. And there's my Apple IIc, my old Mac. This one of the old IBM PC XTs I had. This is a lovely old machine with a beautiful little monitor and a printer. There's my Zenith Mini Sport. And there's a box for it up there. And these are all boxes full of stuff as well. Down in the corner here, there's an old 14-inch monitor. I think it was a 14-inch monitor. And there's some removable drive bays that I used to slide into my work machine. And so I could put a 200 gig hard drive in those and slide them in and do backups and things. So they're just removable hard drives. But there's my Zenith Mini Sport, which I bought in 1991. I took that on train journeys all over the UK with me and did work on the train. That was a great little machine for working on trains. It had a good battery life, about 4 hours battery life, which was great back then. And there's my Apple IIc that I bought in around about 2000. I bought that. And I bought that to back up my old Apple II software. I found my old Apple II software, so I bought the Apple IIc to back up what I had that I could find. I only had one box of my discs. The rest of them were all thrown out, not by me. They were thrown out by my parents in a house move. So I only had one box of discs left. So the few discs that were in there that were my work, I backed up using this machine. And also on my website, there's an Apple II sound simulator. And you can hear the Apple II disk drive grunting and groaning. This is the machine I used to record that, my Apple IIc. So that was the machine I used for that as well. So I might show you at my website later and we'll have a look at that. And an old Mac that was a friend of mine's old Mac, and that was from his auntie. So that was sort of a pass down and a pass down as well. And I had some old software. I don't think that's it. There was some old software in a plastic case. It'd be on one of the shelves here somewhere. And it had the original Mac writer and Mac word processor and stuff like that that they used. So no hard drive inside. It was all booted off floppy. Oh, there it is. There's a Mac software in that plastic case there. That's where it is. So there's a few manuals and Mac software in that case. Yeah. So that was my office in 2002, 2003. Definitely no later than mid 2003. That would have been. Okay, and so about 2005 onwards, what happened? Well, from about 2005 or so onwards, I often asked around my local university, where I'd been working since 1998, to see if I could set aside some space for a computer museum, an old storeroom, an old office, part of a foyer in a building somewhere, or even a garden shed. There's all these garden sheds around campus. Some of them aren't being used. Can I have one of those for an old museum? Okay. But it seemed no one wanted to help. Everybody I talked to, building managers, head of school, deans of school, vice-chancellor, nobody seemed interested in helping to set up an old museum, an old computer museum. Things just weren't popular or trendy back then. Now in 2020, if you said I want to set up a museum, you'd probably get offered 5 buildings. But back then in 2005, it wasn't trendy to set up museums for old computers, and only the serious computer geeks wanted to keep the old stuff. Everybody else thought it should have just been thrown out. Thrown into landfill or recycled or whatever. Shredded. So in 2008, I teamed up with a colleague of mine, Daniel, who you saw in the title screen. And he was a fellow lecturer in my school and a really good guy. And we were talking one day in probably 2007, we were talking. And I said I wanted to set up a computer museum. And Daniel said, so do I. So we found each other, and from then we teamed up, and so we'd do pincer movements on people. We'd talk to people around the university and butter them up, and then we talk to them again a week later, and we just happened to run into them a few days after that and say, oh, what do you think about that museum proposal, and that sort of thing. So we teamed up together, and we had to be really really strategic in approaching people, because it was easy to get people offside. And so we pulled our resources and worked towards setting up a museum together. In August 2010, after lots of work and negotiations, an unbelievable amount of work and negotiations, we finally had the start of our museum. Okay, so we're finally given some space, and we finally got an area to set it up. Finally, after years and years and years, I've been pushing it since 2005 or earlier, and dreaming about it since at least the mid 1990s. And Daniel and I teamed up in around about early 2008. It was. We teamed up and we both began pushing for it. So in August 2010, we got it. We got the museum going. And it was a single glass cupboard in the foyer of our building, the building where we both worked. Okay, so a single glass cupboard. That's all we got. But it was a start. Okay, and it was only big enough to hold a few items at a time. But the thing is, it was a start. And once you got something set up, you can then push for more later. So you get the foot in the door, and then you worry about opening the door wider as you go. Okay, that was our strategy. So here's a picture of the museum, and this is the day we finally got it set up, 28th of August 2010. I took a photo of Daniel standing in front of it, and we called it the IT Mini Museum. Daniel did all the wiring for the lights inside it. There's big power boards and things down here running all the fluoro lights. I think he did fluoro lights on every level. So it's 4 glass doors here, or 2 big sliding glass doors, so slid that way and that way, could open it either way. And there was cupboards underneath here where we had the power supplies running the fluoro lights and the power boards, and also some spare stuff. And it was a lockable cabinet, so there's one of those little round cabinet locks here in the middle of those glass doors, and these cupboards down here could lock as well. And there's my Apple IIc, there it is, and an old floppy drive that was in my IBM, my Pentium 100 floppy drive, and I'm not sure I can't remember what they were now. I can't remember. There's the Apple IIc monitor, the Apple IIc base unit. I think that's the mouse for the Apple IIc. I think that's the mouse and bits and pieces. I'm not sure what they were. They might have just been signs saying what these things are with information about them. And then the rest of because Daniel got the keys to the cabinet, and he's the one that wired it up for power, for lights. He got to fill out the other parts of the cabinet. So this is a TRS-80, and Daniel had a whole lot of little handheld computers and handheld calculator computers. There's a whole bunch of them here, and he had a really big collection of those that he'd been collecting since, I guess, the 1980s. And so they're mostly all his old stuff that he'd been using for work and for his own use. And so he put those in the museum. I'm not sure what that was. I can't remember what that was. And that was a motherboard. That might have been the motherboard out of my Pentium 100, and there's the floppy drive for it. So that might have been the motherboard for it as well. So, and that was a TRS-80 would donated. I can't remember what the box is for now. Okay, but that was our museum, finally set up on the 28th of August 2010, and I took a photo to commemorate when we finally got it open and working. The lights were switched on, and it was just me and Daniel there for the opening. None of our school came down to look and congratulate us on the hard work, or even say, "Oh, that's good, you've got that set up now." Nobody said anything. It was just all, just Daniel and I happy that it was set up finally. Nobody else really gave a rat's ass. And in 2010, so after a flurry of phone calls, we finally talked our uni newspaper into doing a story on our museum. It took quite a few phone calls and quite a few emails to talk them into doing a story. And after that, our collection expanded fast. Mainly lots of small items. We got lots of small items. An old 1960s Fortran manual, some old software. Very occasionally we get some old computer kit. But we get old mice and old software and old manuals. So they're the most of the things we got. Okay. And occasionally we might get an old PC or an old Mac or something like that. But it was pretty rare. And there's our news story. Right, and here's our news story in the Uni News newspaper. And so this was on the 14th of October 2010. You can still see it on the Uni News. If you go to Seeker University's website and search for Uni News, you can still find it there archived. I took a screenshot of this a few years ago, I think. Yeah, not that long ago. So it's still there. It's still there archived. So it's a photo of Daniel, a photo of me, and computers used to boost memory capacities to 16 kilobyte and use floppy disks which weren't really floppy. They certainly couldn't handle multiplayer gaming with high-speed graphics 30 years ago. Young people have no idea how things used to be, say IT lecturers Daniel Punn and Michael O'Malley, who are custodians of the IT Mini Museum in the foyer of Building 19 on Rockhampton campus. So this is the story they came up with. You know, we sat with them for probably an hour or two and told them all good stuff they could write, and even provided emails with information. And this is what they came up with for their story. It was pretty disappointing. The pair promised to rotate their displays with different theme every few months, and are keen for loans or donations of old computer gear, office made via phone or email. The IT Museum project is supported and supplied by the Faculty of Arts. It's funny they put that in there. We asked them to put that in there, but it's really, I mean, we had to fight tooth and nail for everything. Really, the faculty didn't support us at all. They really didn't care at all, and the head of school couldn't care less about the museum even after it was open. So you know, there was no congratulations or round of applause for setting up a museum or anything like that in the school meeting. There was nothing. You know, wasn't even mentioned. The main idea for the project is hopefully to boost and promote all information technology and information systems offered by our faculty, says Daniel. Yeah. And that's been one of my classes. This was taken for promotional material for the university. They used that in quite a few of their brochures, this photo. And other photos as well of me. I got used in quite a few of the uni publications for advertising university and courses and things, and quotes from me and things were in those as well. So I appeared in quite a lot of the uni publications. And also, I was also the robot soccer referee for every year it ran while I was there at the uni. Every year it ran, I was a robot soccer referee. So over 10 years of yearly events. So used to do a lot to help out the uni, and I also used to help out at all the open days and things as well. Yep. And that's the lowercase there. So there's my Apple IIc, and that's the TRS-80, and microprocessor in 1990. I don't know where that is. It's one of the items. There's my 5.25 inch floppy drive from my Pentium 100. Some memory chips, a Seagate 8.4 gig hard disk. Yeah, bits and pieces really. That's the old motherboard from something. Maybe another old motherboard, I can't remember. This looks like it's changed a little bit since the other photo, but the photo I took so this is on the 14th of October, and this photo here is from the 28th of August. So the Uni News article appeared about a month and a half later. So they took different photos, I guess. Things have changed in the cabinet since then. So the main items we had, okay, so the main items I had, my main items were I had my Zenith Mini Sport laptop that I purchased brand new in 1991, and I took it on trains with me all over the UK, took it on flights with me between the UK and Australia many times, came to the US with me several times, came to Hawaii with me, came on holidays with me to Portugal and Europe. Used to take it everywhere because it's so light. Had an Apple IIc that I purchased secondhand in late 1999, and that's when I used to record the Apple II sounds, the disk drive sounds, my Apple II disk drive sound simulator, and so on, and also back up the few remaining discs that I had of my work from the early 1980s. The few discs that I still had that weren't thrown out. Damn, that still hurts. So much of my work was thrown out. I had some IBM XTs and ATs and 386s, mostly XTs and ATs. I think I had one 386. And also the SGI Indigo workstation, and it had two very large external SCSI drives. It had no monitor, keyboard or mouse, and I got given that in about 2001, 2002 time. So before we started the museum, I got given that. And I also had an old games console with about 10 game cartridges, and it's still not emulated anywhere. And my family purchased it secondhand in the late 1980s. Oh, sorry, in the early 1980s. In the early 1980s, we were at a train museum on the Gold Coast, and this guy was trying to sell his arcade game console with the games, and the train museum guy didn't want to buy it, so we followed him outside and said, "How much do you want?" And I think he said $20, and we said, "There you go." So, and it turns out it's very rare. I've never seen the games emulated anywhere, and I've never seen the games console emulated anywhere. So it turns out it was a very strange, rare little console. It certainly wasn't one like the You know, it was well before the PlayStation, and it certainly wasn't as popular as the Atari 2600 or anything like that. That sold tens of hundreds of thousands of units, but this turns out to be a really rare games console. I've never seen it emulated or anything anywhere. And it's got about 10 games cartridges, and I'd recognise the games if I saw them again instantly. They were very quirky, strange games specific to this console. And I also got a big old IBM PC, a massive old IBM PC, had a massive base unit and a massive CRT monitor. It was at least 27 inches, the monitor, which was really rare for PCs to have because they were so expensive. You know, a 14-inch monitor was hundreds of dollars. A 27-inch monitor was many thousands of dollars, maybe $10,000 back when this was built. And it was from a colleague of mine at the university who was taking retirement. He was retiring, and all the machines in his room were being thrown out, and his room was full of old PCs and great big monitors and things, and all I could save was one old IBM PC with a massive monitor. That's all I could save. Oh, and also saved a couple of dumb terminals. More on that later. Okay, and so that's all I could save of his stuff. The rest of it just all went into the big skip outside, and it was rained on and then taken away to landfill. So all these beautiful old machines were just taken away and dumped in landfill after they'd been rained on. And the CRT monitor was so heavy. I'm a pretty big, beefy bloke. I'm 6 foot and I'm pretty strong. And the CRT monitor was almost too much for me to lift on my own. It was really backbreaking. So that's how heavy it was. So just thinking about the monitor, you know, so it would have had to have been 40 kilograms, maybe even more, the monitor. So, and so that was all my stuff that I had before the museum even got anywhere near going. And then when the museum started, we sort of got some offers of other things. We had a TRS-80, an Atari 400, and an Atari ST, a Amiga 500. We had some old Macs. I also had an old Mac as well from a friend of mine whose auntie had it, and you saw that on my shelf earlier with a plastic box of software. But we got some other old Macs as well, and Daniel had lots of handheld computers and early calculator computers and so on. So he had tons of stuff as well. But all this stuff in the middle here we got donated. So the TRS-80 down to the old Macs we got donated as well. And there was lots of old software and manuals and things. And I almost bought an old Cray supercomputer as well. Sydney University were getting rid of it, and they were advertising the old one on eBay, and the bidding price was under $1,000. And from this guy's office, when I saved this machine, I'd also saved 2 dumb terminals. So this came with no dumb terminals, so I was going to hook the dumb terminals up to the old Cray. So I had the thing, you know, I could have had it ready to go, but I missed that on the old Cray. Right at the last second, I got sniped. There you go. I should have bid high, shouldn't I? I should have put a maximum bid of 5,000 in and seen if that won it. It would have meant a 20-hour drive, pick up the machine in a trailer, and then a 20-hour drive home. So it would have meant a 40-hour drive for me to go and collect it. But hey, it would have been a hell of a road trip to go down and save the old Cray from Sydney University. Yeah, I still think about the old Cray. I've still got pictures of it saved on my hard drive here. Yeah. Okay. So then we moved forward to about 2012. So the museum had been running about 2 years now, and we were provided with a storeroom. So we got given a storeroom in the end. So finally, some help from the faculty. What you're doing is good. It's worthwhile saving those old computers. Here you go. Have a storeroom. Wow. Okay, so that was awesome. The faculty was finally starting to get behind us, and we started making plans to expand our museum. Just amongst ourselves, we were thinking, where else can we put another cabinet? We're going to try and put a cabinet somewhere else in another building, in the library we were aiming for, and put a big glass cabinet in the library, and then slowly expand. But we had to tread carefully and approach the right people in the right way with kid gloves, because people got offside easily, or their nose out of joint, or if we asked them too often or too vigorously, they would get their backs up and wouldn't agree. So we had to be very careful with our approach, and so we had to coordinate things very carefully. Sadly, in 2012 or round about then, Daniel left to work at another university, so it was just me. And shortly after that, in say 2012, 2013, somewhere around then, I developed very serious health issues where I had to leave work and go on extended sick leave, or leave without pay, and while I was away getting treatment, they moved buildings. My school of computer science moved buildings, and my office was moved, and so I couldn't be there to help with the packing up or anything. I just moved my stuff without me being there, and the keys to the mini museum cupboard were lost. So the keys to the glass door and also the wooden doors underneath were lost during the move. I never saw them again. And in 2019, the museum was removed from the foyer of Building 19, and the details of what happened were unknown because I haven't been working full-time at the university since about 2013 or so. Okay, I've been part-time. I've been part-time teacher there for various courses, usually each term, but I'm not full-time there now, so I'm not privileged to the knowledge of what happened. And everybody I've asked doesn't know. So the museum was removed, and the details of that removal are unknown. I don't know what happened or why or how it was organised or who did it. I don't have any information at all. Okay, and so I wasn't sure what happened to my old Apple II or Daniel's machines or anything else. I wasn't sure what happened to any of it. But in late 2019, I saw my Apple IIc in another glass front cupboard in another building on campus, and after some phone calls and some emails, we were soon reunited. We were reunited a few days later. Okay, so I got my Apple IIc back, but everything else that was in the cupboard, I don't know where it went. It could have been thrown out, or I don't know. Somebody else could have grabbed it. I hope it was grabbed and given a good home, not just thrown out. But so that all happened in 2019. So sadly, the museum ended with a whimper. It didn't end with a bang, it just ended with a whimper. It just slowly faded away, and then it was dismantled, and I don't know what happened to the stuff that was in there. Apart from my Apple II, I got my Apple IIc back, but everything else is thrown out, I think. Or scavenged. Hopefully it was scavenged and given a good home, but I don't know. So Daniel and I were not there to fight for it or to support it. So didn't have anyone to fight for it, so the powers that be decided they needed the space for something else and just dismantled it without even though I'm still working on campus part-time. They never said, hey Mike, you set this thing up, are you okay if we dismantle it? Nobody ever sent an email or contacted me. I used to stop in and visit it. Once a term or whatever, I'd stop in and visit the museum, make sure it's still there. Yes, it's still there. Okay, the lights would never be turned on, but the museum was still there, and the Apple IIc was still there, and everything was still just as you saw in the photo. But then in 2019, I checked during term, and it was gone. I thought, oh my God, where's it gone? Have they moved it? Have they dismantled it? What's happened to my Apple IIc? And then I found it a few weeks later in another cupboard in another building on campus. So Daniel and I went there to fight for it, so it ended with a whimper. Nobody was there to look after it. Because of my health issues around the same time, or actually a bit earlier than this, before this is back in about 2013 or 2014, I had serious health issues, and I ended up leaving the university full-time. And I had to get rid of my collection really quickly, okay? There wasn't room in my house. I was also moving house. I was also moving down to a city to get treatment for my health issues, okay? And I might be gone for 6 months or so. So I had to get rid of my collection really quickly. So I just gave it away. I just put ads in the university newspaper saying free, and I just piled it all at the front of my office, and gave it all away for free. Apart from my beloved Apple IIc, which I've still got now, and my Zenith Mini Sport, and a few small bits and pieces. Apart from they're the only really bits of computer gear I've got from the old days, and it's just a few bits of software and things now. So all the rest is gone. My Indigo workstation gone. The TRS-80 gone. I don't know where they're gone. And all the old XTs and ATs I've had, they're all just given away. Some of them still work. Some of them still work great. and some of them had hard drives in that were over 20 years old, and they still work perfectly, no bad sectors. So they've all gone, hopefully, to good homes. I hope they've gone to good homes. Okay, but I just had to, because I had to leave the university so quickly to start treatment, I just had to put it at the front of my office and put ads in Union newspaper and say, free to a good home. So, and I went back the next day, and over half the things had gone, and I went back again a few days later, and it had all gone apart from a few old textbooks. So people were certainly grabbing it. I just hope they gave it a good home. I still miss my collection, especially the Silicon Graphics Indigo workstation. Even though it wasn't complete, I didn't have a monitor or a keyboard or mouse. Now knowing what I've watched on YouTube, I know that I can get those things or make them work from IBM PC keyboards and mice and monitors. So I'm sure that would still work fine, that old Indigo workstation. I'm trying to avoid starting a new collection now. I'm trying to avoid looking on eBay and looking in local newspapers and looking on Craigslist and places like that. I'm trying to avoid doing that because I don't want to start collecting again. Because you need too many sheds and too many spare rooms. And it really did take over my life for a while. And I still love old computer kit. I still love it. I still hate seeing old computers shredded or thrown into landfill. I think that's horrible to throw them into landfill, especially. But I think really, practically speaking, a computer museum needs to be in a big city to have any hope of surviving. You need to be in a big city or at a university campus or somewhere where you've got free or cheap space where you can set up and not have to worry about renting massive buildings or things getting water damaged or termites building nests and things, where things can be looked after properly. And my university back then, maybe it would change now if I try to set up a museum there at the university now. But I'm not full-time now. I'm only part-time. I'm only 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week or so for my classes, or maybe 8 hours a week, maybe 2 days a week. But I'm not full-time now, so I don't have the same contacts or the same influence. What little I had years ago anyway. I didn't have much years ago either. But yeah. If you can get the head of school on your side, that would have been something, but my head of school didn't want to know about the museum. Or one of them didn't. One of them did, one of them didn't. There was 2 heads of school, they changed. Yeah, one of them was a right dickhead. But anyway. So that's it for the museum. Hope you found the video useful or interesting. It won't be useful, but interesting. If you're setting up an old computer museum, or you want to set up a museum one day, or you're a collector, maybe you found this interesting. And maybe you might even find something in there that was useful or helpful. But thanks for watching. Have a nice day. So here I am on my Mr. Software Valley website, and here's my Apple II disk drive sound simulator that I was talking about earlier in the video. And it's basically a bunch of buttons, and you can press buttons and play disk drive sounds, grunts and groans. There's a whole bunch of sounds the Apple II disk drive used to make, and these are this is a program that plays them back under Windows. And there's a video there demonstrating it. If you want to watch the video, there's a video there. You can just click on that and watch the video. It does a demo of it. And also you can download the Apple II disk drive sound files, the actual WAV files I recorded. And back in... More info. Back in... When did I first do this? Yeah, so 2001 I recorded the sounds. So it would have been... November 2001, I would have been recording the sounds from the Apple II, and that would have been around then when I was transferring the discs, the few discs I had left for my Apple II days, and were transferred around that sort of time as well, October, November, December, somewhere in there it would have been probably. So they're there if you want to have a look at those as well, the video, the program if you want to run it on your Windows machine, or the sound files if you want to do some sort of project with them. All I ask is you give me a little bit of a credit like that, and that'll be fine. Okay, so anyway, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.